cut, we put a Band-Aid on it, right? But what about your emotional hygiene? What do you do each day for your mind? Like, do you ask yourself that question when you wake up each day? What can I do for my mind today? And that's our challenge for you, is what can I do to generate more joy in my life today? So we're going to focus on that. We're going to dive in. So let me switch my screen here. All right, so first I want to talk about, where does our happiness come from? I think it's important to go over these percentages. So 50% of your happiness comes from genetics. So it's pretty common knowledge that we get our eye color from our parents, or maybe like the texture of our hair. But what researchers have found is that they've learned we have also inherited our happiness disposition from our parents as well. So think about it this way. Are you more of a Tigger or an Eeyore? So if you're a Tigger, you might see the glass half full, and maybe even there's a beautiful reflection off the top of the glass, right? Or if you're an Eeyore, maybe the glass is half empty and it's been sitting out all night, and now it may have bacteria growing in it. So maybe you, resonate with one or the other, right? That's what researchers call our happiness range, okay? We're born with that. It's kind of like, think about like a factory setting. But don't fret, if you're on more of the Eeyore side, there's hope, right? So the second piece or percentage is 40% of our happiness comes from our behavior. That's a really encouraging statement, because that means we control our thoughts, which control our actions and our behaviors. So that is really encouraging, that we're going to focus on that piece a lot today. Is those are the things that are going to help us generate joy, okay? And then 10% is tied to external circumstances. So things that happen to us that are outside of our control, like maybe being quarantined, right? So I want you to be aware of where those percentages are when we get started, and know that you have the power to rewire your brain. That's what research has really shown in the last year, a couple of years here, is that through some of these techniques that we'll go over, these tools and resources, we can rewire our brain to help us make us happier. So before we dive into that content, we also like to start this presentation off on a positive note. So if you could take time in the chat box to just tell us what brings you joy. It can be anything. And then Amanda and I are just going to share what brings us joy, and while you're thinking of that, okay? So I intentionally chose this picture here of myself and my twin sister, Jules. So we're very, very alike, and so we share very similar passions for fitness. And so anytime we're together or talk on the phone, a couple times a day, not gonna lie, and it just brings me joy, and I'm thankful to have her. And then we're holding books, because personal development and learning is something that brings me joy. And the third piece is the coffee. Love my coffee, love going to the coffee shops. I know that brings me joy, so I try to make sure that I have those things in my life each day, or make sure that I touch on them during the week. So off to you, Amanda.
Yes, thank you, Jamie. So my picture on there is my family and my boyfriend and I, and a couple things in the picture that bring me joy. So spending time with close friends, close family, loved ones, and then also being outdoors. So my family is very active with like hunting, fishing, just being at our cabin outdoors. So those are the couple things that bring me joy. While we're going, I'll just read a couple that people have been throwing in the chat box. Thank you for doing that. I saw a few water polo ones. Being outside, walking, sunshine, exercise, family, a good book, all kinds of good things in there. So thank you for sharing.
Yes, thank you. And it's helpful to make a list of those things, and then just make sure you're doing more of those things that bring you joy. So next, I think it's important that before we get into the tools and resources that are going to help generate more joy in your life, is to go over what could hold us back from generating that joy. So the number one thing that I wanted to bring to you first is something called our negativity bias. So your brain isn't built to make you happy. It is built to make you survive. So our negativity bias is our brain's survival instinct to favor negative information, okay? So think of it this way, like a pleasant day can unravel in a matter of seconds when an unexpected snarky comment comes from a coworker, right? Or maybe for the umpteenth time, the dishes are left in the sink by a spouse, right? Those things trigger our negativity bias because we're searching for something negative to look for. And what's hard about that is that when you focus on the negative, your brain assigns more weight to negative emotions. So researchers have shown that we need at least 3 positive emotions to 1 negative. So we got some work to do, but we're capable. What I also like is this question you can ask yourself: was it a bad day, or was it a bad 5 minutes that you milked all day, right? I mean, again, if you're focused on the negative, it may seem that way. Another thing that I want to bring up too is, like, at the end of your day, you know, when you get home and you typically ask that question, like, how was your day? Does it typically you might find that you tell your spouse or partner, whoever it is, like, well, this happened today. And then it just kind of ruminates, right? So a good thing to switch is to be like, what were you grateful for about your day, right? So it's just a little tweak, and we'll go into that a little bit deeper. So the next thing I want to touch on is the hedonic treadmill. It's kind of like a really great analogy. So here's this point here. I'll be happy when. Maybe you found yourself saying that. I'll be happy when I get the job promotion. I'll be happy when I lose the weight. Whatever it is for you, fill in that blank, okay? The constant pursuit of what we think will make us happy tends to rob us of the joy we are trying to find in the first place. It's like being on a treadmill and not going anywhere, and that's why it's a really great analogy. So remember, I'll touch on the role of adaptation next. So remember, the 50% of your happiness comes from genetics, right? So like there's this genetic or this factory setting. So although you may think having more money will make you happier, although you may think that traveling more will bring you more joy, right? Those things may bring you joy in the short amount of time, but they won't last because it's this role of adaptation. We'll just adapt to it. So the next things that we talk about are tools and resources that if you practice them daily, that will add joy and happiness to your life, not these temporary things that you think will. So I want you to be aware of that. So now we get to go through the fun stuff of what we can control. So first thing first, cognitive behavioral therapy. It's to raise awareness of our negative mental patterns and then consciously replace them with positive ones. So what does this look like? Like, as we encounter the events and emotions of each day, our brains are busy labeling these experiences. So sometimes things go well and exactly how we planned, and then there are other occasions where life veers right when you were trying to go left. Okay, so maybe you're thinking about some examples in your head right now. Here's one that may resonate with you. You and your spouse are in the driveway, you're in the car, you're ready to pull out of the driveway when your loved one says, wait a minute, I forgot something. I do that all the time. It's terrible. This is a deviation from your plans, and this surprise may have your brain automatically treat it as negative or auto-label it as a threat. You see, guys, the brain, and this is from research, the brain manages 8.6 quadrillion messages a day. And in order to deal with that astounding amount of information, the brain has developed automatic and pre-programmed responses. So think about labels like, this is a threat, this is a crisis, this is potent, it's just so used to labeling them that quickly. So I want to bring you to your attention on the screen of the 2 questions you could ask yourself. Is my brain auto-labeling this event correctly? Is this truly a crisis? Number 2, is there a way I can relabel this event as something more positive or at least less potent? So Kendra and Amanda have heard me say this on countless occasions. But so typically when something comes up, I don't know, just something that wasn't planned, or maybe one of our subs didn't show up for class, or whatever it may be, right? Instead of freaking out, it's more of I go, well, that's a plot twist for the day, or, well, that was unexpected, right? It's something I can't control, but I can control. You can control your attitude or how you perceive that, or even stress in your life. How you perceive stress, you could say, okay, well, what can I learn from this? It's just kind of switching your verbiage. Instead of why is this happening to me? No, what can I learn from this, right? So just kind of a little switch in narrative there. So now that we know that, the next 2 things we're going to talk about are basically ways to increase positivity in your life, or positive emotions, and help to switch that narrative in your brain. So gratitude. Love gratitude. This has been a huge practice in my life, so I really truly want to share this with you because it can make a huge impact. So Researchers, specifically Robert Emmons, he has done a ton of research on gratitude, and he has called it the magic ingredient, okay? And what it's great is there's like 3 things I want to share with you. So number 1, gratitude sparks reciprocity. When someone does something nice to you or for you, you want to return the favor, right? Which only will, again, bring you more positive emotions. And then number 2, it does just that. It increases positive emotions. So remember that positivity ratio I talked about? You need 3 positive emotions to every 1 negative. So doing gratitude and being aware of what you have already in life, being grateful for what you have, that will help increase those positive emotions. And then number 3, it takes us outside of ourselves. So for instance, instead of saying, I need to do this, or I wish I had more, it nudges us out of self-focus and reminds us of the kindness of others and the beauty around us. So it's pretty powerful stuff. Now, Amanda's going to cover some of this a little bit more specifically, but ways that you can incorporate gratitude or use gratitude in your life is a journal. You can physically write it. You can use it in an app. And then a gratitude partner. So this could be somebody at work. You know, maybe you start your day by sending a positive email or praising somebody for something that they did, or thanking them for being on your team, whatever it may be. Or maybe at the end of the week, you have a gratitude partner and say, what were you grateful for about your week here at work? Like what was a win from your week? Whatever it may be, but it's helpful to have something and someone to keep you accountable. I can speak from my experience, and I'll kind of explain that a little bit later. Otherwise, it can be somebody at home. So remember, instead of saying, how was your day? And your brain searching for that negative, look at and say, what were you grateful for about today? You can do it with your kids too. It's really powerful stuff. So we'll cover that a little bit in a little bit. The next thing is the optimism equation. So I'm going to throw a little math, not really, but some math at you, an equation for you for optimism. So optimism equation is a cognitive behavior exercise introduced by psychologist Albert Ellis. The heart of this equation is simple, guys. Optimism can be learned. So the 6 letters are just placeholders for concepts that will help us achieve more optimism in our life, okay? So first I'm going to focus on the first half of the equation, the ABC. This helps us understand how our inner dialogue operates so we can begin noticing when our explanatory style or our narrative in our head becomes more pessimistic, right? So first one, the A is your activating agent. So any experience that triggers emotion and starts a negative train of thought, okay? And these kind of build on top of each other, so that's the activating agent. Then B, belief. Our beliefs interpret our experiences and trigger the emotions we feel. Then the consequence of that belief is our beliefs interpret, the emotions we feel are a consequence of the beliefs we relied on when labeling the event. Okay, so that's that first part of the equation. Now, if we just stayed in that part, it would be really hard to generate some joy and optimism in our life. So that's why we need the second half of the equation. And I'm going to go through an example after this when we go through these 6 letters. And this will be a handout for you to reference, so no worries there. Okay, so D is distract. Let me back up a second. So the second half of the equation helps us practice new techniques for achieving optimism. So whether we are learning to swim or run a marathon, we cannot improve our skills without practice, and we'll cover that. The same is true with breaking thought patterns. So when you're in negative thought patterns, you could literally ruminate there for way too long. So we need this distract. Number 1 is knowing how to distract our brain can help us interrupt vicious cycles of thought. So things like meditate, shift your attention, write down your thoughts, journaling, whatever it may be. The second D, dispute, plays an important role in confronting our critical inner dialogue. So again, avoiding that ruminating. And then the effect is notice the effect of changing a negative statement to a positive one. Take note of how your feelings shift when you dispute a pessimistic thought. So that feels way better, right? So let's put this into practice real quick here. So the A, the activating agent. I don't have time to work out and therefore do not go to the gym consistently. So that is something that, like a trigger, right? Triggers emotion. And because of that, my belief is I'm a failure for not prioritizing my health. And now the consequence of that belief, I feel tired all the time, lack confidence, and I'm a poor role model. Maybe I feel to my family or such. Okay, so again, that feels icky. We need to get to optimism. So let's get the second half of that equation. So to distract, I've been really stressed out about this, so I took time to start a gratitude journal to achieve a more positive mindset. The dispute, if I focus my energy on something positive, I can build a solution on how to schedule working out in my daily routine. That's known as the broaden and build theory by Barbara Fredrickson, is that when you have more positive emotions, you're able to solve problems and just be able to think more clearly. And then because of that, your effect, I feel more confident that I've been able to make a commitment to better my health. I now have more energy and am proud to role model a healthy body and a healthy mind. Woo! That feels so much better, you guys. So I want you to know that this is going to be a great resource and tool to give a try. It's more about really first being aware of these subconscious or negative thought patterns that you may not even notice that you're doing, but then bring it into your conscience, catching it, and then using the second part of that equation. Okay, next up is Amanda to go through some of these things a little bit deeper.
Great. Thank you, Jamie. Okay, so moving on, we are going to do how to continue generating that joy in our life. So the first thing I'm going to run through is what's called the G.I. Joe fallacy. And scientists who study well-being and happiness have come up with this fallacy. So some of you may be familiar with the G.I. Joe show. At the end of the show, they would always make a public announcement and be like, "Thank you, G.I. Joe, now I know," which is where this fallacy gets its name from. And the fallacy is that knowing is half the battle. So scientists say that just merely knowing something is not enough to put it into practice or to change our behavior. You have to actually change habits in order to change your behavior. So kind of tying that into this generating joy, just knowing the ways to generate joy, so just listening to us explain the ways isn't going to change your behavior. You have to put them into practice in order to make yourself happier, more joyful. So that second point on the screen, a positive mindset is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. Very true. So you might have heard us say this in classes, but like a muscle, if you don't use it, you're going to lose it. Maybe you're feeling that now that we've been at home for a while. If you're not using it, you lose it. So this kind of ties into the happiness bike analogy. And they say that learning to ride a bike is a lot like trying to be happy. So both endeavors are going to require balance. They're going to require good judgment and frequent practice. Okay, so learning to pedal that bike. So going into that a little bit further, I'll kind of run you through the analogy of the bike. But learning how to ride our happiness bike includes a couple of different things. So the first thing it includes is exploring the impact of genetics. So if we think of that as our bike frame, that's our genetics. And Jamie said 50% of our happiness comes from those. The next thing it includes on our bike is the role of our life story. So think of that as your bike chain going around and around. Next, the value of leaning towards optimism. So steering. Are you going to steer towards that optimism? How to maximize our return on happiness. That's the next part. Those are our wheels. They keep spinning around and around. And then the last part of your bike is how to implement these concepts in our own lives. So the pedals, what we think, what we do. All right, so riding that bike, learning how to ride that bike, and continuing to practice riding that bike. So when you practice some of these different activities that we've discussed, learning to ride that bike, you start to rewire your own habits. Researchers show that if you want to increase your own well-being, you need to take daily intentional efforts to do so. I'm going to say that one more time. You need to take daily intentional efforts to do so. So ways to rewire. Jamie just kind of went through some of them. That cognitive behavioral therapy, that optimism equation, turning that frown upside down. And then lastly, practicing gratitude. So we're going to go into that a little bit more. Jamie, if you want to click to the next slide, please. Thank you. So, time to generate that joy, time to jump on that bike and start pedaling. Research shows taking time, daily intentional time, to experience gratitude can make you happier and healthier. We were actually just in a webinar yesterday that had a really great saying that we wanted to tie into today about gratitude. So it was Brian Williams, if you're familiar with him. He's a great speaker. But he said, when we get specific is when we get terrific. So taking time to practice that gratitude, writing it down, being specific, has a greater impact on our brains and therefore makes us feel terrific. So these are going to be a couple different ways on this slide that we want to promote you to bring into practice for that gratitude. So first one, you can see on the screen there the 3 different gratitude journal handouts. Those are actually handouts we've created for you that you're going to get sent to you after the presentation today. There's a few different options with these. So they have, one of them was created to be more of like a daily gratitude journal. One's more focused on weekly, and then one's more focused on like monthly gratitude. So a few different items on each of them. I'll just kind of run you through them quickly here, but like I said, you'll get them sent to you. But each one's going to have an area where you write down a few things that you're grateful for. They're also going to have things like what made you laugh today, something that put you in a good mood. The weekly one has you rate your day, 1 out of 5. Was today kind of a 1, I could have been better, or today was a 5. I felt grateful, I showed that gratefulness, and that kind of thing. And then there's also an area on them where you will write down a positive affirmation. So a couple suggestions or examples of those are like, I am committed. I'm committed to starting this gratitude journal and getting it done. Today I am driven. Today I am strong. Today I am authentic. Today I am trusting. That kind of thing. So those are your positive affirmations. So that's your first chunk. Second option is you'll see in the top square there the 365 gratitude journal. So another way you can practice gratitude is going to be through apps. There's a ton of different apps out there for gratitude. We're going to explain this one, kind of touch on a couple of them. But the 365 gratitude journal, and it is available for both Apple and Android. But this app is a science-based self-care toolkit that motivates you to build habits of positivity through self-love and compassion. So what they do is they help build your motivation to become the best version of yourself. So they have different activities that you're going to do daily. You're going to put them in. Again, this is just one of those apps. There's plenty other options. A couple of them that I know are popular that you may have heard of. One's called Happy Feed. There's an app called Grateful. There's one called Reflectly. All sorts of different options there. And then the third option we have on the screen, which you can see, the Start Today, the lady holding her journal. So Start Today journal is, not sure if you've heard of it, but it's fairly newer. It was founded by Rachel Hollis, who is a motivational speaker. She's a podcaster. She's a best-selling author. If you're familiar with her books, she has a couple called Girl Stop Apologizing, Girl Wash Your Face, things like that. So this Start Today journal is a product created out of a practice that she did and still does every single day. And it's the practice of starting each day with this journal and starting each day with goal setting and intention. So each day you go in and you have 3 different sections that you fill out for your journal. So the first section is writing down 5 things that you're grateful for. These can be little things. She wants them to be little, simple, things that happened to you within the last 24 hours. So a couple of examples like, my kids brought me coffee in bed today. My husband made me dinner. Someone at the store complimented me. Small things like that. Second part of it is you're going to write down your 10 dreams. You are writing down the same 10 dreams every single day. Okay, the only time you're changing your dream is in the event that, you need to change your dream. Maybe something happened in your life and you're like, you know what, that's just not a dream for me anymore. I need to switch that one up. Or you've reached your dream. I've done it. I got it done, checked it off the list. I got to add a new one in there. But you're writing those same 10 every single day. And then the last part is you're writing down one goal. One goal. The one thing you're going to focus on doing first, focusing on one at a time makes you more effective, more likely to do that. So I'm going to turn it back to Jamie for just a minute or so here because I know she uses a Start Today journal. And so, Jamie, you want to touch on that real quick?
Sure. Yeah, I will. So this is my second Start Today journal. It's what I use. We just encourage you to find what works best for you. Pen to paper, as Amanda said, like there's something that happens in the brain that like has a bigger impact. But if you're more able to stay consistent with doing it in an app, do that. But maybe this is what you have with your gratitude partner. For me, like I've been consistent with it since last August because I tag certain people on social media and they tag me, and that's what holds me accountable. So find somebody that holds you accountable to it, or find one of these options that works best for you, and I'm telling you, it'll make a huge difference. Remember, gratitude is a magic ingredient. And the last thing I'll just note on here too is the optimism equation that we just went through. That's the handout that you'll get in the email that's sent after the workshop. Ready to forward, Amanda?
Yep.
Okay. Last one.
All right. Awesome. So it is not joy that makes us grateful. It is gratitude that makes us joyful. So again, the simple act of practicing gratitude has a host of positive benefits. It can increase our mood. It can lower our stress levels. It can strengthen our immune system, lower blood pressure, and can make you feel a stronger social connection. So, continuing to practice your gratitude in order to make it a habit that leads you to a healthier and happier, more joyful life. So, time to get on that bike and put those pedals to motion, learning to ride that bike and practicing those activities we've gone through. Again, being specific in order to be terrific. Jamie and I just want to thank you all so much for attending today. As we mentioned a couple times throughout the presentation, we will be emailing you the resources that we've discussed. But at this time, if anyone has any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat box. Otherwise, thank you again. If you're hopping off, enjoy the rest of your day. Be
Amanda,
joyful.
I have one affirmation to leave you guys with. And that is, I am confident, I believe in myself and my abilities. So I just want you to truly believe in yourself and your abilities that you can do this. It's just making that commitment to it and rewiring your brain. So thank you guys so, so much.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, ladies.
Like making its own song.
Right?
I didn't see any questions come through, Jamie.
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
Yeah. We got lots of thank yous, some waves,
Cool.
high fives, some sunshine.
Nice.
Someone
Good,
said,
good.
where can we buy the book? Oh, the Start Today journal?
Oh, I'll put it in the, I can put it in the follow-up email.
Yeah. We'll link it in the email for you, Maria.
Yep.